This week in Linux, we have a ton of news. In fact, sometimes I have to push stuff off, but we're going to do something a little different. We're going to do a bunch of extra topics. We're going to start off with Nobara 42. It's been released. We also have a beta release of KDE Plasma's next version with Plasma 6.4. Then we have some stuff to talk about related to the Deepin Desktop and openSUSE. And also we have some news for the Arch install installer for Arch Linux, as well as a bunch of other things, including maybe or maybe not, Steam could have had a data breach, or did they not? Or is it not? It's not. But you'll get the details later in the show. All of this and more on This Week in Linux, the weekly news show that keeps you up to date with what's going on in the Linux and open source world. So let's jump right into your source for Linux good news. This episode of Twill is sponsored by Sandfly Security. More on them later. Nobara 42 is here, and it's rolling out some browser changes, brand new app store, and some gamer-focused system tweaks. So let's dive in. First up, Brave is now the default browser on Nobara. Nobara 42 ships with Brave, replacing Firefox and the Chromium-based options due to various hardware acceleration and GPU crash issues. It includes a policy set that disables features like Brave Rewards, Wallet, VPN, AI chat, and also Tor. Brave was the only browser that they said that didn't trigger video playback or hardware acceleration issues in testing, making it the most stable choice for this release. For those who are curious if it's because of a anti-Firefox stance, it's not. They just feel like it provides the features that they want, and that's why they're switching to Brave. And if you've been using the old software managers, it's time to meet Flatpost. Nobara replaces Plasma Discover and GNOME software with Flatpost, a custom GTK-based Flatpak manager built in-house. It manages installs, it updates permissions and repositories, and works across any desktop environment. This provides a consistent App Store-like experience, even for unsupported DEs like Hyperland or Labwc or whatever else. Those are not technically DEs, they're window managers, but you get the idea. While keeping users in the Flatpak ecosystem for safer software handling in the sense of the sandboxing and that sort of stuff. Nobara's new rolling release model is also in full effect because, for those who didn't know, Nobara is switching to fully rolling release. This is the first fully developed release under the distro's rolling release system. Users of version 41 should have already received a package update via the system updater, and this marks a shift toward more continuous improvements without needing full installs between versions. Mesa 25.1 ships with additional patches for Wayland support and the upcoming Doom: The Dark Ages. These changes improve game compatibility and performance in modern Linux gaming setups. Hardware drivers just got easier to manage. The updated driver manager now supports switching between Mesa Standard and Git Vulkan drivers, and lets users choose between multiple NVIDIA branches, the production, beta, and also new feature branch. This makes it easier for users, especially gamers, to fine-tune performance without using the terminal. Finally, here's a quick look at what's under the hood. So Nobara 42 runs on kernel 6.14.6. They have updated the GNOME desktop to GNOME 48. KDE Plasma has been updated to 6.3.4. Mesa, like I said, is 25.1, and the NVIDIA driver version is 570.144. These updated components mean better performance, wider hardware support, and more polished desktop experience out of the box. So Nobara 42 is more than just an update. It's a clear step forward into a cleaner, faster, and more user-focused Linux experience, especially for gamers and even content creators. So let's do a quick housekeeping section, because there's a lot of stuff I want to tell you about related to the channel, related to the show, and that sort of stuff. So there's new videos on my channel if you want to check them out. There's a new one about, if you haven't seen the PewDiePie reaction video, go check that out. I think it's a really good one. I've also done a release video for Ubuntu's 25.04 release, as well as a new video related to the Fedora 42 release, and also the things to do after installing Fedora 42. And I just released today a new video that is about the Cosmic Desktop. I did a walkthrough of the Alpha 7 release, so check all those out. And there might be more by the time you watch this. Who knows? There's a bunch of stuff on there. I've been putting out a lot of videos, so check those out. And also, I'm going to be going to the Red Hat Summit that is happening next week from the 19th to the 22nd. So let me know if you're going to be in Boston, or especially if you're going to be at the Red Hat Summit. We can meet up and chat, and that'd be very cool. Let me know in the comments, or just send me a message. Go to tuxedo.com, and you can find the contact section and just send me a message. And also be sure to check out the next episode of Destination Linux. It was a really cool episode that's coming out on Monday. I'll be traveling to the Red Hat Summit as it comes out, so I won't be able to respond to any comments or anything, but check out the next episode of Destination Linux. It is a very fun episode. We have, and also the intro. The intro is just so weird. Ryan has started writing these really weird intros, and they're kind of fun, but they are odd. Just let me know what you think about the intro, as well as the rest of the show. I think it's fantastic, but let me know what you think. I'll have links in the show notes when it comes out. The KDE Plasma 6.4 release is a little way away, but the beta is here. So if you want to check out the beta and provide some bug testing and that sort of stuff, you can find links in the show notes. And it is packed with changes that polish the desktop, modernize the code base, and bring in long-awaited features. So let's break it down for what's new. But before we do that, I just wanted to remind you about a previous episode. There was a couple topics in the last episode where I just endlessly scrolled the release notes. And you'll see that if you check out the regular release notes for this beta release, it's just a couple things right here, just these two things. And then you look at the full changelog, you see that it is a ton of stuff. So I figured it's now become tradition. Let's do the endless scroll on the KDE Plasma 6.4 beta release 2. So let's start with the biggest shift happening under the hood. And that is Plasma 6.4 introduces KWin-X11, which is the X11 specific portion of the window manager. Now it is split into its own package, and this signals that they're focusing a lot on the Wayland stuff. We already knew they are, but this is a very clear indicator that they're pushing forward to Wayland as fast as possible. This separation helps streamline the KWin development and prepares for the eventual phase out of X11. Now, for those who are not ready for Wayland, it is coming. It might not be ready right now for everyone, but it is inevitable, just like Thanos. In addition to the KWin-X11, they also have split out Aurora, which is basically the window decoration theme engine for KWin, and it supports SVG and QML rendering, and this is basically already part of KWin, but because they're doing a split of the X11 and the Wayland support, they've also split out the theme engine as well. KDE Plasma 6.4 introduces a major UI revamp for the Spectacle screenshot utility, which is really interesting because it kind of modernizes the screenshot tool for better usability and visual clarity. Virtual desktops are also getting some more customization options. The update adds support for per virtual desktop custom tile layouts, which is very cool. This lets users tailor their window tiling on a per workspace basis, making multitasking even more efficient. Plasma's Task Manager gets a power boost as well. Users can now control whether a window has a title bar and frame directly from its Task Manager context menu, which is really cool because you used to have to go into the right click and then go into a sub menu, and then you'll see no borders, and that effectively does the same thing, but this way makes it faster, which is just nice. So it's a handy tweak for window management, especially in tiling or borderless setups. That's how I use this all the time. I typically actually put a shortcut of like Super B or Super H, depending on no borders or hide borders, that sort of thing. It's up to you, whichever one you want to do. But I have a video where I talked about a bunch of things that you don't know that you could do in KDE Plasma. It's like 17 tips that you don't know you can do. And in that, I talk about the borderless windows. So check that out. I have it linked in the show notes. The Plasma system tray also got a bit cleaner because KDE Plasma 6.4 adds support for fully disabling system tray icons from apps that lack an internal setting for this. It gives users more control over visual clutter and what apps show up in the panel, which is really nice because sometimes you want to be able to hide them depending on whether they're active or not, or whether they have anything that's currently working or not. And then you could also say, I just want it to be completely hidden, but some applications wouldn't respect this, and I like the fact that they're making it possible to just kind of force them to do that. And I also appreciate the fact that they are, keeping support for app indicators. GNOME. KRunner just got smarter, actually, because it's already really powerful, but with KRunner, they have improved the search result ordering along with support for various types of color codes. It enhances KDE's universal search tool, making it more powerful and user-friendly. And it's more than just a search tool. It's more than just a launcher. It can do all sorts of stuff, computational stuff. So you want to do some math inside of it, you totally can, as well as many things like unit conversions and all sorts of stuff. KRunner is awesome, and it's also part of the 17 things you might not know exists in KDE Plasma. So check out that video. There's more. There's 15 more things in there that you might not know about. KDE Discover is also getting improvements. You can now start an update in Plasma Discover just directly from the notification. It streamlines updates and encourages users to stay up to date with fewer steps, which is always nice. Plasma notifications are leveling up as well. The beta adds support for sending persistent notifications to the notification history, so you won't lose important alerts even if you dismiss them too quickly, which is pretty cool. KDE is also making visual effects more customizable. Users can now customize the duration of the fade desktop virtual desktop switching effect, which is just a nice little extra layer of polish and user control for the desktop experience. Background services are also now easier to monitor because the Plasma System Monitor introduces a new background services item to group them on the applications page. It improves system transparency and makes it easier to manage performance of various different processes. There's also a bunch of small but still welcome touches. For example, KDE Plasma 6.4 now highlights newly installed apps in Kickoff, revamps the KDE menu editor, which is when you right-click the Kickoff button, you can directly change any of the settings for every single application that's in the menu, which is really nice. And one of the things that people don't know that you could check out in the 17 tips, they've also made some changes for the drag and drop behavior on same disk moves to skip confirmation. These usability tweaks improve the everyday experience without overhauling how things work. So with KDE Plasma 6.4, there's a bunch of cool stuff, and it is set for release on June 17th. This beta gives a polished preview to what's to come, but there are going to be some bugs because it is still a beta. So check it out if you want to help find bugs and report them. So if you do want to try it out, be sure to report the bugs because I'm sure everybody will be appreciative if those can be squashed. All right, now we had a lot of editing in this episode, in this particular topic, because there was some technical issues in terms of the recording process, but we are still scrolling the entire time, even with all the technical stuff, and we're still at 50% of the changelog. So yeah, lots of stuff coming in the next release of KDE Plasma. openSUSE just dropped the Deepin Desktop environment, and the story behind it involves years of ignored security reviews, they say, as well as they claim that policy violations have happened and one very questionable install script is there as well. So let's get into the details. The big news, obviously, is that Deepin Desktop has officially been removed from openSUSE. They say that the combination of these factors led us to the decision to remove the Deepin Desktop completely from openSUSE Tumbleweed and from the future Leap 16.0 release. This follows the discovery of a packaging policy violation involving a hidden workaround that bypassed SUSE security reviews, allowing unvetted components to install with just a single click. That does seem pretty sketch if I'm reading this right. So the heart of the issue is a license agreement dialog. So openSUSE found that the Deepin feature enable package bypassed standard packaging checks by presenting a fake license screen that, when accepted, installed unreviewed dbus and polkit components. It allowed core system level changes to be made with no oversight, basically, undermining both system security and the integrity of openSUSE's packaging process, which would clearly not go over well. And it's not an isolated incident, apparently. This is the result of years of friction. SUSE's security team documented an extensive history of Deepin's components with critical security flaws, including unprotected root-level dbus services, broken polkit authentication, and race condition exploits going back as far as 2017. Despite numerous review requests and years of back and forth, Deepin upstream consistently failed to resolve or even acknowledge many of the reported vulnerabilities. And also, it seems that one component even led to a local root exploit. Perhaps. The Deepin API proxy introduced a critical design flaw, allowing a privilege escalation to root. SUSE attempted coordinated disclosure, but Deepin upstream failed to respond promptly or share fixes, ultimately introducing new issues in the patch. This revealed a deeper problem. Deepin's upstream lacks a responsible security culture, and this, at least that's what it seems, with fixes either ignored, incomplete, or introducing new vulnerabilities. So what happens now for Deepin users on openSUSE? Well, Deepin will be removed from openSUSE Tumbleweed and Leap 16. In Leap 15.6, only the offending Deepin feature enable package will be removed. Users can still manually add Deepin development repo if they want to opt into it. While not officially supported, it still gives the users the option to use it if they want to, at their own risk, without implying any trusted packages or anything like that from the openSUSE project. So what about the upstream for Deepin? Well, they're not staying silent about this. After publication of SUSE's report, Deepin developers responded by publishing their own blog post and outlining a plan to fix the outstanding security concerns by the end of May 2025. Whether this response leads to lasting changes is still unclear, but openSUSE is open to revisiting Deepin if upstream earns back their trust. So the removal of the Deepin Desktop from openSUSE is a wake-up call for how seriously security and policy compliance are treated in Linux distributions and how they should be treated. This is something that should not be acceptable if there are vulnerabilities or there are things that need to be patched and they're not being patched. That would be a problem. If you don't know that the problems are there, that's one thing. But if you know, and then you don't do it anyway, that seems a bit problematic to me. Now, Deepin is a very nice looking desktop. It's a very slick desktop, but that's not really enough if the foundation isn't secure. I would say it's not worth the risk in that case. But hopefully there's just some misunderstanding here or there, and they're going to get some fixes and patches out, and maybe see if they would get back into openSUSE, because my fear is that some people are going to be using it and then not get some patches at some point, which would be a shame. But overall, if there is a problem, then it should be taken care of however that needs to be. Arch Install just got an update, and while it might not sound like flashy at first, version 3.0.5 quietly delivers one of the most practical iterations yet for Arch Linux users. So let's unpack what is new in this release. Let's begin with the standout changes in usability and security. Arch Install 3.0.5 introduces support for encrypting stored user configuration data and now stores passwords as a hash instead of plain text. That's very important because plain text is not typically the best thing for security, so that's good. These updates significantly improve system security, especially for automated and scripted installs. There's also something new for fans of minimal or alternative desktops. Arch Install 3.0.5 is here to add support for Labwc, which is a window stacking compositor for Wayland, Niri, which is a scrollable tiling window manager for Wayland, River, which is a dynamic tiling window manager compositor for Wayland, and Xmonad dynamically tiling X11 window manager that is written and configured in Haskell. So all of these are now available through Arch Install. It broadens the out-of-the-box compositor options available during install, catering to more workflows and preferences. Post-installation also got easier with this release. It adds support for additional post-installation menu options, including reboot, chroot, and exit. These new options make testing and transitioning from install to live system, just more smoother. Under the hood, there's also some polish. Improvements include partition type detection, assignment and misconfig handling, better Btrfs subvolume creation, and using the default EFI boot app path for the Lamine bootloader when installing to USB. These changes enhance compatibility and reduce friction during installs, especially on non-standard setups. And as always, there's a mountain of bug fixes. Not necessarily that they have a mountain of bugs to fix, just because if you have a lot of updates to any kind of system or any kind of software, there's going to be bug fixes because every piece of software has bugs. That's just how it goes. So these fixes span everything from Sway launcher support, Pipewire symlinks, locale settings, and disk config validation to UI alignment, as well as repo handling and even MBR boot partition defaults. There's a lot of stuff in here, a lot of fixes, which is always great to see. While Arch Install 3.0.5 may be a maintenance release, it is a big one. It improves security, expanding desktop choices or window manager choices, and smoothing out the install process as a whole. If you are interested in checking out Arch Linux, this is a really good way to do it. And this is not really for beginners. Now, if you know that it's not for beginners and you still want to do it, feel free to have fun with it, but just know if the system breaks, it's not because Linux broke, it's because you're using something that's not meant for people who are new to the system. As Linux users, we know what's up. Security is non-negotiable, but with threats getting smarter, your security tools need to keep pace without dragging your system down. And traditional agents, they slow you down, they leave blind spots. It's time for a smarter approach. That's why This Week in Linux is proud to be sponsored by Sandfly Security, the revolutionary agentless platform designed for Linux. Sandfly doesn't just detect and respond. It revolutionizes security with SSH key tracking, password auditing, and drift detection. If you don't know what drift detection is, basically it's expecting a certain set of your system to be a certain way. If things just randomly change, it notices that, and that's basically detecting drift. So it sees all that and more, covering threats from every angle. Whether your systems are in the cloud, on premises, or in embedded devices, Sandfly ensures they're all secure without the headaches of agent-based solutions. If you don't know what agentless or agents are, essentially an agent is something that is installed on each individual computer that you are trying to do security tools for. And then if there's an update, you have to update every single agent. It's very annoying. Agentless means you don't have to do that extra step over and over and over. So that's fantastic. Now listen to what Ken Kleiner, the senior security engineer at the University of Massachusetts, has to say about Sandfly. Sandfly is the first product that he's seen that accurately and quickly detects thousands of signs of compromise on the Linux platform. Its unique method automates tasks which would be manually impossible. Automation is key with detection, and Sandfly completely fits this and other requirements. If your organization is using Linux, this should be part of your cybersecurity toolset. So experience security that's not just effective, but gives you peace of mind. No agents, no downtime, just cutting-edge protection. Dive into the future of Linux security at thisweekinlinux.com/Sandfly. That's thisweekinlinux.com/SANDFLY. And see how Sandfly can transform your security strategy. And if you're fascinated by cybersecurity as much as I am, then go check out the interview we had on Destination Linux with the CEO of Sandfly. We talked about all sorts of cool stuff from Linux, security, open source, even DEF CON. Tons of great stuff, and we get to know his awesome story about how he got into all of this sort of stuff. So check it out, destinationlinux.net/409 for that interview. And of course, thisweekinlinux.com/SANDFLY or at thisweekinlinux.com/Sandfly to learn more about Sandfly. And also, if you want a discount, there's available for the Home Edition. You get 50% off by using the coupon code Destination50, which he announced on the interview on Destination Linux. So there you go. 50% off, Home Edition, Destination50, and of course, thisweekinlinux.com/Sandfly. So Valve is really cool, and they have a lot of great things to talk about. But this week, we might have something negative to talk about with Steam, and there might have been a Steam data breach, because there's been a lot of buzz about a massive data breach with Steam. But before you panic and start resetting passwords, let's break down what actually happened and what didn't. Let's start with the headline. Was Steam hacked? Well, Valve says we have examined the leak sample and have determined this was not a breach of Steam systems. And despite viral claims of over 89 million records being breached, Valve confirms no Steam systems were compromised and your account isn't at risk from this leak. So what was actually leaked? Well, the leak involved old SMS messages with one-time use codes valid for only 15 minutes. So like when you log in and you need to verify, that sort of thing, that kind of code is what was grabbed. Plus also the phone numbers that they were sent to. These messages don't contain login credentials, payment info, or account associations. So they have a number, but they don't know whose number it is or anything like that. So unfortunately, your number could be in a database that will get you random robocalls, but you probably are already in that database and have been for years because it's just been rampant these days. So anyway, they can't be used to hijack your Steam account because there's no association between the numbers and your account. So where did these texts come from and who's responsible? Well, this is really interesting because this is something that a lot of people were jumping the gun on and just jumping to conclusions. And Liam from Gaming on Linux decided to directly contact Valve. So he did the due diligence to go in and find out what is what. And I'm doing due diligence by reading the information that Liam shared. So here's that. Valve notes that SMS is inherently insecure, saying that SMS messages are unencrypted in transit and routed through multiple providers on their way to your phone. So this highlights a broader issue with SMS overall. So if you didn't know, SMS-based authentication in general is not great, and it can be vulnerable just because it's effectively plain text at all times. And SMS is just a really old technology, and that's why a lot of the times different phone companies have different replacements. So if you use, if you're messaging someone from an iPhone to another iPhone, you're going to be using the iMessage system, not the SMS system. And then also on Android, you're going to be using the RCS system, not SMS. But when you're using these kinds of services, they really don't know what you're using, so they can't do that, and it's just going to go through SMS. And it's just not a great option. So get a multi-factor authentication tool instead. Those are a much better solution. Now, there were some reports that Twilio was involved in this because they're a common SMS provider for different automations and services. And they say that there's no evidence to suggest that Twilio was breached, according to a Twilio spokesperson. This clears one of the early suspects and suggests the source of the leak may lie elsewhere in the SMS delivery chain. And there's possibly no way to find out because SMS is just not a reliable system. I mean, it's reliable and it's consistent and it works. It's just not encrypted in any way, so it's not a secure system. So should you be doing anything to stay secure? Well, Valve says users do not need to change their passwords or phone numbers as a result of this event. There's no action required unless you receive suspicious messages, but Valve recommends enabling the Steam mobile authenticator anyway for added protection. So no, Steam wasn't hacked, but this incident is a good reminder to switch to app-based two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication to stay alert for anything fishy and that sort of stuff. So you can just use these tools instead of SMS. If you are using SMS for things, I understand it is easier in some ways, but it is a much better solution to use one of these multi-factor authentication tools. And because it just helps you keep your accounts safer and easier. So do that. One of the most requested Steam Deck features is finally here, and it doesn't need a third-party tool to do it. Valve just dropped a small but mighty update in the latest beta release. So let's start with the biggest feature, that is the new battery charge limit feature. So they say that they added a battery charge limit control to settings power section. This option allows you to set a maximum charge limit for your Steam Deck. Limiting the charge to 80% can be beneficial for long-term battery health. So for example, you could say, I only want it to be on 80%. And that way, if you leave your Steam Deck charged at all times or powered on at all times with a cable, that way you can leave it without having to damage your battery at 100% at all times. So I'm not sure if they have a way to kind of like just force it through to the 100%. Maybe if you're like going to extra charge it and then leave, that'd be really nice. If they don't have that, they should add that. But if your deck is usually docked or always charged, this can help you extend the lifespan of your battery. Valve also cleaned up some settings for better organization. The display dimming, suspend timeout, and the battery percentage toggle have all been moved to the power settings page. It's a very small but welcome change to streamline some stuff so that everything's in one place. And also there's a minor fix that lands for those using the on-screen keyboard. Valve fixed a bug related to pasting from the on-screen keyboard. It smooths out basic usability, especially when navigating text input in desktop mode, because sometimes you need that on-screen keyboard. If it didn't work right, it's pretty irritating, so that's good. So it's a short update, but the battery charge limit feature alone makes this one of the most highly sought after updates in a while, because it is something that people have been wanting for quite a long time. Definitely worth switching to the beta channel if you're wanting to use this particular feature, because there's not a huge amount of changes in this particular thing for the beta, but also it is still a beta, so you may want to wait until the actual release is happening too. That's up to you. So keep in mind, it's beta, there's bugs. That's always the case. But if you want to jump ahead, there you go. And for those who are curious, no, I rarely use betas. I'm just going to leave it as is. Actually, I hardly ever update my Steam Deck anyway. SteamOS is officially going beyond the Steam Deck. We already knew this, but they've also made some big changes related to the compatibility rating system, because it's not just Steam Deck verified anymore. They're also introducing a new system for SteamOS compatibility. With the Legion Go S powered by SteamOS that's shipping soon, they say that they have expanded the deck verified system and introducing this new compatibility ratings for SteamOS. This system helps players instantly know if a game works on non-deck SteamOS hardware, with over 18,000 titles expected to be marked compatible right from the start. So how does SteamOS compatibility differ from deck verified? Well, SteamOS compatibility is based on a subset of deck verified testings. So it checks if a game and all of its middleware are supported, but doesn't test for performance or input on every device. It's a lightweight but useful way of ensuring basic functionality across the growing ecosystem of SteamOS powered devices. What about developers? Do they need to do anything? Well, if your title already has Steam Deck compatibility rating, an automated process will use that data and give it a SteamOS compatibility rating. That means zero extra effort is required for this from developers if they already have the Steam Deck compatibility because Valve will handle all of that automatically. So when will users actually get to see these new ratings? Well, Valve is currently generating this data and making updates to the UI in Steam clients and in the store. They say that they expect to ship this in the next few weeks. That means that if you're using a device that is the upcoming Legion Go S, you'll soon see SteamOS compatibility badges in your Steam client and store pages. We don't know if that is going to be on all devices, maybe stuff that you can see if it has SteamOS compatibility in general. We don't know about that just yet, but we'll see when it does release. So can SteamOS compatibility be a little worse than DEC verified? That's an interesting question, and they answered that with no. SteamOS compatibility results will all be the same or higher than Steam Deck verified results. So if something is DEC verified, you can trust it'll be at least compatible on other SteamOS devices. With SteamOS spreading beyond the DEC, Valve's new compatibility system is a smart step forward. It's minimal effort for the devs, maximum clarity for players, and it's just great to see it happening. And it's also probably just the beginning of the improvements for SteamOS and the Steam Deck in general, because I'm a big fan of Valve overall. I've made that clear many times. And I also have a Steam Deck, which is an awesome piece of hardware. But I love to see that they're doing this because they're making it. I wish they had something that's like Linux compatible too. That would be really cool to say, like, here's the Steam Deck compatibility, the SteamOS compatibility, and Linux compatibility. Although I understand why they're testing for these specifically. And usually the Linux support comes with one of those. More specifically, the Steam Deck support, it usually does. But it'd be nice to also see a Linux one, just because, it used to have like the Tux icon that was like the Linux support. I wish they brought that back, because having them, the combination of those would be great. So just, side request, Valve, bring back the Tux logo for the Tux logo icon for Steam compatibility, having Steam Deck, and Linux compatibility, having that. Podman just dropped version 5.5, and it's packed with new features, smarter container management, and some solid quality of life improvements for devs and sysadmins. So let's jump into what is new with Podman 5.5. Well, actually, first, let's talk about what Podman is. Podman is a tool to be able to manage containers and run containers, so you can manage the containers or pods or images. It supports Docker and basically anything that's OCI compliant. So this is a very cool piece of software. If you haven't given it a shot, it's a really cool way to kind of create and manage containers, and also run existing images if you have them for whatever services provide Docker containers and that sort of thing. But let's talk about what is new with Podman 5.5. And the biggest headline has to be there's a new feature for working with OCI artifacts and virtual machines. So they have the addition of a Podman machine CP command to copy files into a running Podman virtual machine. So a Podman artifact extract command also to copy contents of an OCI artifact to disk, and a mount artifact option to mount OCI artifacts into containers. These tools streamline artifact management and make it easier, much easier, to manipulate content inside virtual machines or containers directly from your host. Podman's Quadlet support just got a serious upgrade for systemd users. So Quadlet, the .container units, now support memory, reload CMD, and reload signal. So .container, .image, and .build units support retry and retry delay, and .pod units can now set a custom host name, and all units support the new upheld by directive. This gives sysadmins more fine-tuned control over how containers and pods behave in systemd managed environments, from error handling to memory caps. Managing containers also became more flexible with this release. The Podman update command now supports env and unset env to modify container environment variables on the fly. It lets you adjust container configs without needing to recreate or restart them, which is a real time saver in production. Performance got a big boost thanks to changes in how health checks work. They say that health checks have been refactored to avoid writing to the database as much as possible, greatly improving performance on systems with many simultaneous health checks running. That's a huge thing for scaling, so less I/O means less overhead on busy systems. On the security side of things, Podman is stepping things up. For security hardening, the proc/interrupts and the sys device systems CPU thermal throttle paths are now masked by default in containers. This helps reduce attack surfaces inside containers. A lot to say. So it helps reduce attack surfaces inside containers, making default deployments more secure out of the box. And of course, this release includes a massive wave of bug fixes because issues fixed include health checks still running while containers are paused, volume mounts failing on Windows, and Podman start attach throwing errors in remote client under certain conditions. These fixes improve reliability across multiple platforms and reduce friction for both rootful and rootless workflows. Finally, Podman's internal just got a solid refresh. Podman now requires Go 1.23 and updates, or above obviously, and updates include Builda 1.40, containers/storage 1.58, container/image 5.35, and container/common to 0.63. These updates ensure compatibility with the latest tooling and future-proofing of Podman's ecosystem moving forward. So whether you're deploying production containers, scripting automation, or building stuff with systemd, Podman 5.5 brings new tools and rock-solid stability. So be sure to check out the full changelog if you're ready to upgrade, and I'll have that linked in the show notes. So the Rust language has a new version, and that is version 1.87. And this is not just any version. This is a version that is celebrating the 10-year anniversary of the Rust language. So it's got a lot of powerful stuff packed in. So what's new in Rust 1.87? So this version introduces anonymous pipes to the standard library, making it easier to combine ST or std OAuT or standard out and standard error stderr in cross-platform code using std::io:: pipe. Just rolls right off the tongue. Previously, this required threads or platform-specific hacks. Now it's baked into the language for simpler and cleaner process handling. Another boost to safety and performance, architecture intrinsics just got safer. So most std::arc intrinsics are now usable in safe Rust if the required target features are enabled. This means developers can write high-performance architecture-specific code without dipping into unsafe territory, as long as features like AVX2 are properly gated. The ASM exclamation macro just got a major upgrade. Inline assembly can now jump to labeled blocks in Rust code, letting devs craft more efficient control flows directly from assembly. This is a huge win for systems-level programming like kernel development and embedded devices. Rust 1.87 stabilizes precise capturing in IMPL trait return types for trait definitions. This brings more flexibility and clarity when designing traits, especially for libraries with complex generic bounds. And there's also a massive list of stabilized APIs, everything from VEC extract if to new string methods and IO pipe types is now part of the stable Rust. Plus, many are now usable in constant context. These gives devs more expressive power, especially in low-level and compile time scenarios. So there you have it. That's what's new with the latest release of the Rust language. So 1.87 is killing it. Not only is it new features and brings a lot of reliability and speed improvements, it's also celebrating 10 years of the Rust language, which is really cool. Whether you're building embedded systems, writing OS kernels, or just piping some logs, this release brings something for you. So happy 10th, Rust. So a few weeks ago, Kdenlive released a new version of their video editor, and there's just a lot of cool stuff I wanted to talk about, but I haven't been able to get it on the show because there's just been so much to talk about that I decided to make a bunch of extra topics for this episode just to include it and have this as well as another video editor right after this. So yes, let's jump into what is new with Kdenlive 25.04. So there's a lot of cool stuff in here. Let's kick things off with the most headline-grabbing feature, and that is object segmentation. A new plugin based on the SAM2 model now allows you to create object masks to remove the background of your videos or apply an effect only to an object. All processing is done locally as well. This means no more sending data to cloud services. Background removal and object level effects are now available to be used inside of Kdenlive with a local, fast way to do it. It's just very cool. Now, I don't know if Kdenlive ever actually sent the data off in the first place. I'm just saying that if you're using a different tool to do this process, they typically do. And this is very cool that you can do it inside of Kdenlive, which is just awesome. Next up is some big improvements for the audio waveforms. The audio thumbnails were refactored to make the audio thumbnails faster and more precise. Better waveforms means smoother editing, especially when working with dense timeline or syncing audio cues. And I do this a lot of stuff. I have edited so many episodes of this show with Kdenlive over the years that anytime there's a new update, I am always super excited to play with it because Kdenlive is a very cool piece of software. And the fact that it's open source is just kind of nuts. So check it out if you haven't, if you're interested in video editing anyway. If you're not interested in video editing, then, use something else because it's a video editor. Interoperability just got a lot better as well, thanks to the Open Timeline IO support. So they have rewritten the Open Timeline IO import and export function using the C++ library. Editors can now share project timelines across tools like DaVinci Resolve or Shotcut more reliably. Just don't expect effects and transitions to carry over, but having support overall is very cool because there are some things that are just specifically custom to the various editors. So you're going to have those kinds of things are not going to transfer over, but the basic core project timelines will, which is really cool. Now let's talk about the workflow improvements. Some highlights of this: in adjusting the duration of multiple adjacent clips at once, vertical audio waveform zoom, shift click to collapse or expand all effects, color-coded monitor timecode widgets, and improved search within project notes. These refinements streamline daily editing tasks and reduce friction during complex projects. And of course, stability fixes have also made it into this release, which is always great to see better improved stability. So Kdenlive 2504 includes fixes for freezes during clip extraction, better handling of copied sequence clips, and more efficient autosave system for large projects. These changes directly improve reliability and performance for users pushing the software to its limits, which I tend to do. So that's pretty cool. Kdenlive 2504 shows what open source video editing can deliver when a passionate community and smart engineering collide. Whether you're cutting YouTube videos or indie films or whatever, this is definitely going to be an update worth checking out. Shotcut 2505 introduces a new alpha strobe video filter, adjustable track headers with width to the timeline, an item count to the playlist, and you can actually have a new add generator option to the timeline toolbar and a new file rerun filter analysis function. These features streamline the editing experience, making it faster to handle various different types of timelines, where it's a simple or a very complex creative effect for your projects. All this stuff is improved in Shotcut with these new tools. And there's also big usability wins landing in this new release with the freeze frame feature. This release adds the freeze frame option to the timeline, and it's really cool. It kind of gives you the ability to create dramatic pauses or still scenes very easily. So this is really good for people who want to kind of like do a pause of a... I'm just kidding. I did that myself. That was just me stopping. But anyway, for those working with external monitors or prepping for HDR workflows, Shotcut's laying the groundwork for some improvements. So there's a settings player external monitor deck link gamma function with SDR and HLG HDR options and HLG color transfer gamma to GPU effects. While full HDR support isn't quite ready yet, these additions start building the pipeline for color-accurate monitoring and grading, which is very cool. There's also some changes to reduce user friction, improve media compatibility, and bring Shotcut more in line with familiar editing environments. For example, there's new compositing in obscure with blur, obscure with mosaic, and masking filters, and also a redesigned convert to edit-friendly dialog, and also moving files go up button for more intuitive positioning. There's also some fixes and upgrades under the hood as well for various supports or different things like 5.1 deck link audio, proxy generation for BT 2020 color, SDI, HDMI capture, and more. And also, lastly, Shotcut stays modern with updated dependencies. So under the hood, they have updates to Qt or Qt 6.8.3, MLT 7.32, Rubber Band 4.0, and SVT AV1 3.0. These updates boost performance, ensures compatibility, and also paves the way for some future features that a lot of people are looking forward to. And for those who don't know, just real quick, MLT and Shotcut are made by the same people. And it's very cool because MLT is used in Kdenlive and a bunch of other things. And Shotcut is basically like the I don't know if it's like the home editor for MLT or exactly, but it is really cool. I haven't used Shotcut in a little while. I haven't used it in the last couple of releases. The UI of Shotcut is kind of confusing because by default, it's not what you would expect to in terms of the UI, at least the last time I used it. So you may have to go in and change like layout settings and that sort of stuff. So if it is kind of confusing when you first launch it, just keep in mind that you can go in and change the layout and make it much more as you would expect the video editor to look like. But anyway, this might not be like a flashy reinvention of the system, but it's a very solid evolution and refining tools, squashing bugs, preparing for HDR support and all that sort of stuff. Very cool to see for the latest release of Shotcut. Thanks for watching this episode of This Week in Linux. If you like what I do here on the show and want to be kept up to date with what's going on in the Linux and open source world, then be sure to subscribe. And of course, remember to like that smash button. If you'd like to support the show and the Tux Digital Network, then consider becoming a patron by going to tuxdigital.com/membership. Where you get a bunch of cool perks like access to the patron-only section of our Discord server and so much more. We have a ton of cool perks. And if you want to join me during the live streams, you can do so as a patron in the Discord server and talk with me live during the different segments and all that sort of stuff, as well as join me in the patron-only post show that happens every week after the show when we get done with the live stream. That's how post shows work. And if you want to support the show and the channel in other ways, you can get some merch at our store, tuxdigital.com/store. There's the Linux is Everywhere t-shirt. There's also the This Week in Linux shirt and much, much more at tuxdigital.com/store because we have like hats and mugs and hoodies. Hoodies is not a thing. Hats, mugs, and hoodies at the store at tuxdigital.com/store. You know, it's funny. I messed up hoodies. I used to say t-shirts. And I messed that up. So now I have a whole new mess up of the things. Anyway, tuxdigital.com/store. I'll see you next time for another episode of your source for Linux and news. Thanks again for watching. I'm Michael Tennell. I hope you're doing swell. Be sure to ring that notification bell. And until next time, I bid you farewell.